Hi, this is Don Farber with VineyardSoft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to this KnowledgeSync customer support session. The topic for this session will be, why isn't my KnowledgeSync event triggering? And so, to look at the top reasons why an event might not be getting triggered, we're going to use a combination of the KnowledgeSync application and also a PowerPoint presentation. Before we start going through those top reasons, however, let's discuss what we mean by a triggered event. When a KnowledgeSync event is submitted for execution, the event is checked, and if the event's conditions are met by matching underlying business conditions, the event is considered as triggered. And a triggered event will then execute the corresponding alerts and workflow. So let's begin. KnowledgeSync, in order for it to successfully check and trigger an event, needs to have the KnowledgeSync Windows service running, and that Windows service must be running out of a real user account. In order to look into this, we're going to actually go into the option for Windows Services. This option is typically located within your system's control panel and administrative tools. Now, what we see here is the KnowledgeSync Windows service, and from right here we can see whether or not that service is currently running or stopped. But very importantly, you should right-click on the KnowledgeSync Windows service and choose the option called Properties, and then click on the Logon tab, because it is essential that the KnowledgeSync Windows service runs out of a real user account and not out of the local system account. And by default, when KnowledgeSync is installed, its Windows service is configured to run out of the local system account, which means you need to come in here and simply highlight this account and choose an account that has at least domain user privileges. And with that, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Reason number 2. The ODBC source that KnowledgeSync is using must be defined using the 32-bit ODBC device manager. Now, the KnowledgeSync application runs under both 32-bit and 64-bit operating systems. However, the ODBC sources that are to be used by KnowledgeSync must be defined using the 32-bit ODBC device manager. And that 32-bit ODBC device manager program is automatically installed on all 64-bit operating systems. In order to get more details about accessing the 32-bit ODBC device manager, we recommend that you simply come to the KnowledgeSync knowledge base, which is located on the website for VineyardSoft.com. Right from here, we can type in the word 64-bit, search for matching entries, and locate the one called 64-bit ODBC. And within this knowledge base entry, you will be told the name of the 32-bit ODBC device manager and where that program is located. So let's go back to our list of reasons and move now to reason number 3. The ODBC source that KnowledgeSync is going to use is defined as a user source and not as a system source. Because KnowledgeSync runs as a Windows service, it is imperative that the ODBC sources that KnowledgeSync uses be defined as system sources and not as user sources. If we come in here to the ODBC Data Source Administrator, also once again located within your system's control panel and administrative options, you'll have the option when you create a new source to create it as either what's called a user DSN or a system DSN. And it is very important that you create all ODBC sources that KnowledgeSync is going to use as system DSNs. Once again, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Next reason why an event might not be getting triggered is that the ODBC source is referring to a mapped drive. And again, let's go into our ODBC Data Source Administrator. Depending upon the type of database that KnowledgeSync is monitoring, you might, in the ODBC source itself, need to point out the actual location of the database being monitored. It is essential that that database specification not reference mapped drives, such as an M or N drive, but rather, if the database resides on a different server other than the one KnowledgeSync is installed on, that this location be specified using what's called UNC format. That is typically a specification that first starts with // server name and then points at the actual location of the database to be monitored. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint, and I'm going to grab myself a quick sip of water, and then we'll continue. All righty, next reason. The Knowledge Sync email account that it is using for the sending of email alert messages is not correctly configured. In order to check this, let's go into the Knowledge Sync Administrator module. Now, it is within the Administrator module option called Software Setup that you'll be able to configure the email account or email accounts that Knowledge Sync is going to use for the sending of email alert messages. If you see no records on the right-hand side of your window, that means that you have to create a new email account for Knowledge Sync to use. However, it is important that you not only configure this email account, and this email account can be configured to utilize Microsoft Exchange or Outlook-based email, Internet or SMTP-based mail, Lotus Notes, and even hosted email systems like Gmail and Hotmail. Regardless of the type of email system that you're using, once you have set up this email sending account, it is absolutely essential that you test it to make sure it's running successfully. And in order to test an email account, simply come in here to the administrator, highlight the email account you wish to test, and select the option up at the top of the administrator window called Perform Email Test. Put in your email address, test again with someone else's email address, and make sure that those emails get successfully delivered. You can also utilize the Knowledge Sync Monitor module to actually track the status of those test emails. And with that, let's go back to our PowerPoint and look at the next reason. If you have configured Knowledge Sync to utilize an Internet or SMTP-based email system, you need to make sure that that system has something called Relay turned on. As you might find yourself in a situation where Knowledge Sync is able to send emails to people within your organization, but as soon as Knowledge Sync tries to send emails to folks outside of your organization, those mail messages are not being successfully delivered. That is always due to a function called Relay. A function of SMTP or Internet-based email systems, Relay being turned on, means that the email system has the ability to send messages to outside of your own organization's domain. Right, now let's take a look at perhaps one of the most common reasons why an event might not be getting triggered or the corresponding alert might not be getting sent out. And that is that the event that you are running does not have an email account to send from. And for that, we're going to jump into the Knowledge Sync Navigator module and take a look at such an event. One very common event that folks use Knowledge Sync to automate is the process of sending out order confirmations to customers who have placed new orders. Let's drill down into this event, and we're going to jump right over to the email tab of that event, because it is this email tab where you're able to specify the name of the Knowledge Sync email account that Knowledge Sync, will use for the delivery of email alerts. If this field is left blank, Knowledge Sync will be unable to deliver an email alert message. So do make sure that you have selected a valid email account for Knowledge Sync to send the alert from. Let's jump back to our PowerPoint. Next reason, the event itself does not have any subscribers. All right, let's go back into this event. We're still here, and let's jump over to the Subscribers tab. Clearly, in order for a person to receive an alert from Knowledge Sync, you must have chosen that person as a valid subscriber for the corresponding event. If this event has no subscriber records in it, well, clearly then, no one is going to receive an alert that Knowledge Sync is going to send. Once again, back to our PowerPoint. The event has subscribers, but those subscribers have no delivery methods selected. Sure, we can choose one or more subscribers, but if we have not checked any of those delivery methods, as I've just done in my case, I will not be able to receive any alert. So not only does an event need to have subscribers, but those subscribers must have one or more valid alert delivery methods selected. Let's exit out of this particular event, and we will not save our changes and go back to our PowerPoint list. the event itself is not active. Now, as mentioned previously, Knowledge Sync runs as a Windows service, and so it's going to automatically submit and check your business applications for the corresponding event conditions. But an event is going to get automatically submitted only if the event itself is marked as active. And if we drill down into this event, right on the very first tab, the description tab, is a checkbox, active, yes or no. If an event is not flagged as active, Knowledge Sync will not be able to automatically submit that event for running. By the way, you can have an event flagged as inactive and still run the event on an on-demand basis by simply selecting the option called Schedule this event now. That will run the event once right now. And let's again go back to our list of reasons. The subscriber who has been selected for the event has no email addresses. Now for this, we need to look at the subscriber information in the Knowledge Sync database. So we're going to shrink things up a bit here, go to our subscriber database, and let's take a look, for example, at our executive team, and we'll drill down into my subscriber record. If a subscriber record is configured, but the email addresses are blank, i.e. they have no values in email address 1 or 2, then once again, there will be no way for Knowledge Sync to deliver the corresponding email alert to that person. So again, make sure that the event has subscribers and make sure that those subscribers themselves have valid email delivery addresses. Let's take a pause for another sip of water and then we'll continue. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Next reason, the subscribers have primary delivery addresses but not secondary delivery addresses. If we go back to the email tab for my subscriber record, you'll notice that I can specify up to 2 email delivery addresses. They can be the same or they can be different. The idea behind this is that perhaps Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I want to get notified at a work email address, but on Saturdays, on Sundays, or before or after work hours, I might want to get notified at a different delivery address. Well, if you decide to come into work early one Monday morning, maybe you arrive at 6:30 and you trigger an event, but you do not receive an alert, well, it could be that that event is getting triggered at a time when Knowledge Sync is configured to use your secondary email address, and that email address happens to be blank. So do be aware of the time of day under which you're triggering events, or just take the safe approach and make sure that every subscriber has valid values in both the primary and secondary delivery addresses, whether that's for email, for text messaging, etc. All right, let's once again go back to our PowerPoint presentation and look at the next reason. The event that you're triggering has an advanced subscriber, but their actual address is blank. So let's go back to our order confirmation event. We'll drill down into our Sage Mass 90, Mass 200 application, and once again take a look at our order confirmation. Now, if we take a look at this particular event and we drill down into it a little bit, we're going to notice that amongst the subscribers or alert recipients for this event is the customer for whom the order was placed and also the salesperson who is related to that customer. So it's important for us to check to make sure that those fields actually have valid values in them. And to do so, we can simply take a look at the query underlying this particular event. Now, if we take a look at the field selected for this query, we'll notice that among those fields is the email address field from our underlying ERP solution. Let's hit preview and actually see if that field has valid email addresses within it. And as you can see, it in fact does not within this underlying database. So if you're using advanced subscribers, take a look at the query's results and make sure that those advanced subscriber fields actually have valid values within them. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint and continue looking at reasons why an event might not be getting triggered or might not be delivering the corresponding alert. The event's query has parameters, but those parameters have no answers. Once again, Let's come back to our list of events, and let's choose a slightly different event. Let's take a look, for example, at perhaps this event right here. Items where their cost has been increased an excessive amount. And if we jump over to the query for this particular event, you'll notice that this event is using a query called items where the last cost is greater than an X% increase over the item's average cost. Well, that X in X% is what's referred to as a query parameter. And here, the parameter is where we have to specify what that triggering threshold is. In my case, I've specified 35%. If this field is left blank and the event is executed, the event will fail. Keep in mind, KnowledgeSync is running as a Windows service, so there's not going to be any prompting for folks to enter any values as the event is being executed. At the time you set up or configure the event, if the query that you've chosen has any trigger parameters, do make sure to make valid entries in all of those answer fields. So, let's once again jump back to our PowerPoint. The query itself does not find any matching records. Well, that certainly makes sense. Let's again take a look at another event. How about AR invoices that are overdue for payment? Let's take a look at that query, and let's see if, in fact, there are any invoices that are overdue for payment. And in this case, certainly, I have quite a few of them. So, before you run the event, go into your query, hit the preview, the very last tab, and make sure that you are seeing valid records being returned by the query. If nothing is returned by the query, then clearly the event itself will not trigger. All right, back to our PowerPoint once again. The query is using change logic and appears to have matching records. Now this one is a little tricky and can sometimes trip you up. In KnowledgeSync, when you set up an event, among the conditions that an event can look for are a change to any field of data in the underlying database. For example, we have an event here that looks at items where the price has changed. This event itself is using a query that identifies when the suggested retail price field has changed. Now, if we go and actually preview the results of this query, that preview is going to ignore the change logic, because query preview mode has no knowledge of an old value versus a new value. So by default, when you preview a change query, KnowledgeSync is going to ignore the change logic. So that can sometimes lead you into a false sense of the event itself being triggered. But remember, in order to trigger a change-based query, the query has to run once initially to kind of take a snapshot of current values. Then you need to go into the underlying application and change the values of one or more records of the field or fields that are being monitored for a change, and then you need to run the event again a second time, because at that point, KnowledgeSync will determine that the field that you're looking for a change in has in fact changed, and the corresponding event will indeed trigger. All right, back to our PowerPoint, just a few more items to go over. The event has already been triggered, and it won't trigger again unless you remove what are called tracked items. For this, we'll head back to our order confirmation event, and let's open up that event itself. If I go to the very last tab of this event called Track, I'm going to see that this event has already been triggered for a number of matching records. If there are no new records that meet this event's criteria, it will not trigger again for the same records. It will not trigger again unless I take the option to remove one or all of those tracked records. And so again, if the event is being successfully checked, but it is not triggering again, one of the first things that you should do is go into the event, go to the Track tab, and see if the event has already been triggered for those matching records. It's also worth noting, back on the Description tab of an event, if you do enable an event for repeat notification, what that means is whenever this event runs, any records that meet its criteria, even if those records have met the events criteria in preceding runs, any records that meet this events criteria will automatically cause the event to re-trigger. So again, you can simply turn repeat on, or you can go to the tracking tab and remove tracked items. And with that, let's go back to our list. The event has an associated report which is holding up the email delivery. And for this, let's actually go into the Knowledge Sync Monitor module. The Monitor module is kind of a Knowledge Sync audit trail. Now, let me just minimize some windows in back, make it a little bit easier on the eyes. The Knowledge Sync Monitor module will let you track the status of checked and triggered events. As you can see, in my case today, there have been 2 events that have been successfully checked. Have they also been triggered? Only one of them has been triggered. Now, if you see a triggered event, but the alert has not yet come through, one of the items that you should keep in mind is, does this event have an associated crystal report? Because if it does, typically that report gets attached to the outgoing email, which means the email itself will not be able to be delivered unless the report itself has first been successfully generated. So again, consider whether your event has to generate the contents of a crystal report. Come in here to the monitor and check to see if there are any reports that are waiting generation. Maybe there's an error in the report, and that error is going to hold up the report, and therefore that report is going to hold on the delivery of the email alert itself. So just keep in mind, again, if your event is executing a crystal report, come in here to the monitor to see if that report is still pending, because if it is, the alert will not get delivered. All right. And one last item for you to consider why an event might not be triggered, and it's perhaps one of the simplest ones of all. Your Knowledge Sync license code is for a server called unknown. In order to see your Knowledge Sync license code, and let's jump back into our navigator view here, all you need to do is go to the Help menu, choose About Knowledge Sync Event Manager, and click on the License button. Amongst the fields of information you're going to see in your license code is the name of the server that Knowledge Sync is licensed to run on. If that server name is unknown in your license, that will prevent any event from being successfully executed. If you are looking at a license code that has an unknown server name, all you need to do is send an email message to license@vineyardsoft.com, include your company name and the name of the server on which you're having Knowledge Sync run. And those are the top reasons why a Knowledge Sync event may not be getting triggered. If none of those reasons apply to your environment, what we would definitely recommend is that you do come to the Knowledge Sync knowledge base, again, from vineyardsoft.com. Just go to the support page and you'll access the Knowledge Sync knowledge base. If you're getting a specific error number or error message, type it in here, and very often you will find the solution to your issue right here. If not, then certainly feel free to contact our support department. You can log a support ticket right from the VineyardSoft website support page. And so on behalf of VineyardSoft, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention going through this session on why your Knowledge Sync event might not be triggering. My name is Don Farber. I thank you very much for your time and attention, and we look forward to working with you.